Hey, what's up, guys? In today's video, I wanted to cover my thoughts on the current meta and balance of Deadlock, especially because a lot of content creators have been making videos on the current balance and meta, like Deathy and Metro, and I wanted to add my 2 cents in there in order for people to understand my point of view as somebody who plays a lot of other heroes and what a lot of pros play in Deadlock currently. And I feel like my opinion is pretty unique, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about some of the pain points that I have with Deadlock. And so without further ado, let me get into the video by saying that Deadlock is a movement shooter at its core, right? That is what makes Deadlock unique in the MOBA environment. Currently, I feel like there's a crisis of identity within the Deadlock balance team where they don't know how to make the game fun. And let me tell you, a lot of people, no matter the meta, do not have fun in Deadlock, me included. People are complaining constantly. If it's a gun meta, people complain. If it's a spirit meta, people complain. If it's a bruiser meta, like it is kind of right now, people complain. And the reason that that's important is that it shows that number tuning isn't the way to make the game good or fun for people. Tuning numbers in a game where the fundamental ability design at its core is flawed, like tuning numbers will never fix that, right? And the way I like thinking of Deadlock is there are 3 different parts that makes mechanical skill in this game, and that is going to be aim, movement, and abilities, right? Those 3 should be the 3 different forms of mechanical skill expression in the game. But currently it's kind of like the meme with the 3-headed dragon where it's like 2 badass dragon heads looking at the derpy one. And I feel like aim and movement are like the badass heads of the dragon looking at the derpy spirit. And the reason I say that is like spirit in this game doesn't take a lot of skill. And that is what makes the game frustrating. And that's what makes it really unfun for a lot of people. And things like Shiv or Abram or Seven are just people who are at the forefront of poor balance right now or poor design. But the issue is always going to be the same no matter what character is strong in the meta. And I think they need to change that. Because if they keep making abilities super dumbed down and OP in comparison to other things in the game, it's going to push away a lot of people who play the game for the shooter aspect. And I'm one of those people. I love playing shooter games and I want to play a shooter MOBA. And I'm okay with abilities being good in this game, but it is really frustrating when it feels like you're trying to outplay people who are just like throwing massive abilities at you that you can't really outplay.
300? Bro, I'm just building extra charge right now, bro. I know it's because like it was like, dude, I know it's because QSR Mystic Burst, but that is still insane for it. Also considering it's also knockup, like.
And it doesn't really feel like there's any mechanical skill in Deadlock. It's just kind of like who can tank the most damage, because you're not going to be able to dodge anything in this game. It's impossible. So who can tank the damage and then dish it out? And the characters that are really good at doing that right now are Seven, because he can pop 4 and kill everybody, Abram and Shiv. They're the ones that are kind of at the forefront, but before it was Geist, it was Warden, it was Yamato, it was Calico before they nerfed those heroes, right? So I think they need to take a look at that. And I'm going to go over how they can fix the abilities and the overall design of the game to make it more fun and more skillful and just have more interaction and outplay potential so that people are having more fun. And I think a good example of what I mean in terms of spirit heroes and not taking a whole lot of skill, in my opinion, is that the ones that are considered skillful are like Lash and Pocket and Holiday. But the funny part about those 3 heroes is that the skillful part about them isn't really the abilities per se. I feel like it's more the movement requirement attached to those heroes, right? Like if you're a good Lash, a good Pocket, or a good Holiday, you're usually somebody who is really good at movement. So if you think of Ido as a good example who plays all 3 of those heroes, why does he play them? It's because he's a movement player. And I think that's all well and good, and I like that. Movement is a core component of skill expression in the game, but I think there's like no actual skill expression with the hero abilities themselves, but just the movement, right? And I think that is a kind of a crucial thing to look at with the game. And also, we need to look at other genres or other hero shooters to take an example from. So I think the current meta makes me feel like I'm playing Overwatch 2, where it's like the tanks are like Shiv and Abram, and they just kind of like roll their face on the keyboard, W key at you, and then just melee you to death, kind of like a tank in Overwatch. And then a lot of the spirit heroes are kind of like the other like ability based heroes in Overwatch that kind of just don't take a whole lot of skill and they just kind of vomit on you. And that's really frustrating. And I think that's a core component of what makes Overwatch 2 very frustrating for a lot of people. And that is what is making the game frustrating in Deadlock. I'm sure you've maybe seen Metro's clips where a Kiriko kills him and then TP's out for free, and he's like confused as a damage player, where he's like, bro, this support can just kind of like do whatever they want and then TP out or get away. That's kind of how it feels in Deadlock, where a lot of heroes can kind of just do whatever they want, and then a lot of like aim characters just kind of get bullied. And we're in a meta again where that's kind of the case, especially in high elo. What up, guys? It's Editor Renan here, and I wanted to give a little more context to what I'm about to talk about in terms of abilities. I just want you to go into the next section knowing that I understand that the game is a MOBA and abilities are going to be stronger than other hero shooters like the Finals or Apex. However, I just wanted to point out that other hero shooters definitely handle abilities better. And even though this game is a MOBA, they need to take examples like League of Legends, where they try to make abilities more skillful in terms of a MOBA setting. And I think that's a big issue. If you want to get the shooter players involved, you gotta make abilities more skillful and less OP, because you're gonna alienate people like Overwatch 2 did. Or another good example is the Finals, when it first came out, died immediately pretty much, and it's still struggling to kind of grow itself, even though I love the Finals right now. I think it's really fun. But when it first came out, it was like you're getting blown up by RPGs and C4 barrels. If you've ever played the Finals in Season 1, a few people liked it. Like if you played heavy, you probably loved it. Like the same way people who play tank in Overwatch 2 or play it in Overwatch, I don't know if they like it in Overwatch 2, but if you play tank in Overwatch, you're like, yeah, I'm having a good time. I bully everybody. But for everybody else, it isn't fun, and the games die, right? So if you want to make the game fun for people who play shooters, look at the ones that are actually successful. Think about Counter-Strike. Utility is more like actual utility in that game. Think about Apex, where abilities are still strong, but a lot of abilities are a lot weaker compared to games like Deadlock. And metas where abilities are too strong are often considered bad metas. So for example, when the meta was Gibby, Newcastle, and Lifeline, three kind of supporty heroes with crazy utility, people didn't like it. And what can we learn from all these hero shooters, right? We learn that people who play a shooter want mechanics to be at the forefront. They want aim and movement to be what separates and kind of what makes a player shine, and not crazy OP abilities. And if you make abilities, they have to be well designed, have great outplay potential, and not be frustrating to fight. And I think if you think about it like that, Deadlock is failing horribly at making a game that does this for shooter players. So another good example is like Shroud quitting the game because of Bebop.
Yo, this character is a crime. What the fuck is that? Actually though, this is so stupid, dude. I am gonna write a fucking letter.
And guess what? Everybody who I've ever had play this game, like any of my friends, everybody hates Bebop, even people online. And part of it is his kit. He does 10 trillion damage while having crazy crowd control potential and tankiness. But besides that, his hitboxes are really massive. And Bebop is just one of many characters that is really frustrating. And so let's actually tackle how we can accomplish making the game better. The first step is making every ability hitbox a lot tighter. Things like getting hooked around a corner by a Bebop or a Dynamo pressing 4, an instant cast AoE percent HP damage ability. You know, AoE stunning people is not fun, especially with how big the ability is, like ability hitbox wise. And if you think about Vindicta Stake and whatnot, there's a lot of abilities that are just way too forgiving. They take no skill to use in comparison to how much skill it takes to be really good at aim or really good at movement. They need to be thinking about making abilities harder to hit and having the ability hitboxes be a lot smaller to do that, so that there's outplay potential and it doesn't feel like you're just getting vomited on by a ton of spirit damage, and you can actually dodge and outplay your opponents rather than just kind of being like, oh, the only counterplay to me fighting a Shiv if I'm playing Haze is to quite literally not get anywhere near him. If I get near Shiv, I die. If I get near Dynamo, he presses 4 and I die. That isn't good counterplay, Deadlock or Valve. you need to be thinking like, what is a character interaction? How is a character going to outplay Shiv if his ability, like if his dash is pretty much undodgeable? How is there going to be outplay potential into Dynamo when he can Phantom Strike, Warp Stone, Veil Walker, and then press his ultimate? There's really not much counterplay. So one of the big things we need to think about is nerfing hitboxes by like 75%. They need to make abilities hard to land. Okay, but we'll get to like buffing Spirit to not be terrible if they do all the changes, but that'll be later. And then what can they do? They can nerf the base damage for one. Some heroes like Shiv or Abram can like hit 2 abilities and one-shot you with like a dash melee or something, or a charge melee. They need to nerf base damage so that some characters can't just roll their face on the keyboard and one-shot you at the beginning of the game. And the game needs to have a natural damage curve, and nerfing the base damage will make the game feel a lot better, especially in the lane phase. And that is one pain point with the game currently, is a lot of heroes are kind of, when it comes to the laning phase, because your hero does no damage in the early game, and then like another hero like Vindicta can just poke spam you all lane and then press 4 and kill you. They need to really think about making base damage a lot lower and hitboxes a lot lower so that there's more outplay potential. And then on top of that, they could even look to nerf the base stats of a lot of heroes like Shiv, Abram, and Bebop, to name a few, where some characters at the beginning of the game are just so freaking tanky in comparison to other heroes that it's really not fair as well. Like, Bebop shouldn't do a ton of damage, be infinitely tanky, and also have crazy pick and crowd control potential. So they really need to nerf those 3 things. And then you might be thinking, well, if that's the case, won't Spirit be really bad? Well, yeah. And then what they can do from there is they buff the Spirit scaling on abilities. So if your character only has like a 1.2 or lower scaling on an ability right now, you're going to have maybe 150 to 200 extra damage if you build full Spirit in Deadlock. And that is like no damage in the late game when people have like 3k HP and a ton of armor. So if they improve the Spirit scaling, but nerf everything else about the ability, what's going to end up happening is abilities are going to hit a lot harder, Spirit heroes are going to scale infinitely more, but they have to actually land their abilities, and the characters take a lot more skill, and there's more outplay potential. And that would just fix the overall kind of game right now, where it's like the early game has more outplay potential with nerf base damage and hitboxes, and base stats nerfed. And then as the game goes on, people who are building Spirit can now do crazy amounts of burst damage, but there is outplay potential because you can dodge their abilities because they're harder to hit now, and there's more feedback and more dopamine for a Spirit player when they land a combo when they have a full build, because with improved Spirit scaling, they'll do a lot more damage. And that would make the game infinitely more fun. And I do want to point out too, when we're in a meta where abilities are pretty much impossible to miss, number tuning isn't going to really do anything. And as you can tell right now, the characters that are good are characters that can just tank a bunch of damage. Shiv can tank, Bebop, Abram, Yamato, Warden, like all these heroes who are pretty much, or Mirage, another one, who are meta, are just characters that can eat damage. Because that is literally the only counterplay in this freaking game. It's like, what characters can eat a bunch of damage without dying? Wraith can't, Infernus can't really, Haze can't, Grey Talon can't, so guess what? They're not that good right now, because guess what? You can't outplay anybody, you can't dodge abilities. So the only characters that are good are like movement heroes that can run away, or characters that can tank. So yes, everything I've talked about will make the game infinitely more fun for everybody, and overall I think the game would grow, just not only for the shooter players like myself who want to, aim and have good movement and then dodge abilities, but also for people who play the mage heroes and the bruiser heroes to scale better in the late game, to have more, dopamine from buying items and seeing that damage potential pop off, if with improved scaling, but, without having all the crazy, boring ability design of the game right now. And overall, I think all of these changes would make the game more skillful and more fun for everybody. But that's pretty much the end of my rant. So to recap, and I'll put a little timestamp right here for like a too long didn't watch type section. What would make the game good? Okay, step 1, nerf hitboxes, nerf base damage and nerf base stats. Step 2, buff the scaling of abilities in the game to make up for it. And then 3, try to make the heroes and try to think about the game in terms of what is the outplay potential for every character, and like what can the enemy do to outplay them, and like what is the what abilities does this character have to outplay the abilities of another hero? And so, for example, with Hayes is a good example where they added a kind of immunity frame to her stealth bomb. That was a really cool change. It's a skillful interaction, and they need to do more of that for other heroes, where there is more give and take for the game, where it's like, you know, Hayes is really squishy, so the counterplay is just straight up destroying her, because she can be really weak, especially if she's behind. But Hayes does have a little bit of outplay potential in the form of her dagger and her smoke bomb and all that good stuff. And they need to think about that more often for other abilities in this game. So for example, with Dynamo, they need to make it so that his ultimate has a cast time, kind of like Lash, where you can get out of it, because right now it's really frustrating for him to press 2 buttons and then there's no counterplay. Just Warpstone, presses 4 and you have no time to react. And it's an AoE you die button. That's really bad design. And I think the same is true for any type of crowd control ability. Like, no crowd control should be instant cast like that, with how powerful it is for Dynamo, or be point and click. Like Mo and Krill and Wraitholt are terribly designed to build abilities. They should not be point and click for how powerful the abilities are on their own, because that'll just create more frustration. And like I said, everything needs to have outplay potential and counterplay, and to not be frustrating to fight. And currently, a lot of heroes are just frustrating to fight. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, because it'll help me out a lot. And check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/RedandTTV, where you can watch me live whenever I play Deadlock, even though I've been pretty frustrated and burnt out with the game for all the reasons I mentioned in this video. Okay, but anyways guys, that'll be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching,